Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a couple of times before. So the last few beers that I had from this brewery were really quite impressive, and this is a brewery that was very new to me when I first tried their beer maybe 2 or 3 months ago, but it seems that there are some really good up and coming breweries in Canada who are starting to get their beer out there a little bit more, which is quite exciting to see because, you know, Canadian beer was very difficult to find for quite some time actually. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I know this brewery can do very well, one that I've had before, but this particular beer had proved to be a little bit elusive to me because this is the third time I think their beers have been over here to Hong Kong, and you know, the previous 2 times I unfortunately missed out on this one, but not now. We can finally do a review of this beer. But I've heard very good things about it. It is very highly rated on Untappd, so hopefully it's as good as I've heard. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. I'm certainly very curious to try it. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to the province of Quebec, we're going to the city of Montreal, and that means we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Messorem Bractorium. So this particular beer is called Triple Tombe. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this is a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, the last beers that I reviewed from this brewery, both of them were actually New England Hazies, and this is pretty much what this brewery has kind of built its reputation on, and they do this style very well. But for those of you who have been around the Canadian beer scene a little bit longer, you will probably know that Quebec is the kind of birthplace of the Canadian beer scene in the eyes of a lot of Canadian craft beer lovers actually. But yeah, these guys are one of the kind of new wave of breweries that have been opening up in recent times. But yeah, lots of great beer in Canada these days, and there are a number of very good Canadian beer tubers that you can go and check out. Off the 10th, Redbeard, the original one, Lee Russell, these guys are all doing a lot of stuff about Canadian beer. So I'll try to remember to put the links to some of their channels in the video description below, but do check them out because there are some great beers available in Canada these days. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go on. Always nice to return to Canada, and you know, Messorem do some great stuff. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, however, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Messorem Bractorium, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things, and that is being added to quite regularly at the moment because we do seem to get a bunch of different Canadian things, which is definitely something that I'm very happy about. But yeah, check out the Canadian beer tubers as well. They'll be able to keep you up to date with everything that's going on over there. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Messorem Bractorium then. So Messorem Bractorium, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Montreal in Quebec, and the 3 men behind this company are Marc-André Fillon, Sébastien Chaput, and Vincent Menard, and these guys basically met in the underground music scene in the city during the early 2000s. So Sébastien is a guitarist, and he plays for the metal band Iron Dissonance, who have played all over the world, but more recently he studied business management and finance, and he takes care of that side of the company, the business and finance and management side of things. Whereas Vincent is a drummer, and he plays for another metal band called Last Felony, but he was also an avid home brewer for years before he went on to study brewing formally, and then he interned at Oval Brewing and Pit Caribou before going to work for Les Trois Mousquetaires for 2 years, and he now takes care of the brewing side of things at Messorem Bractorium. Marc-André was the singer of Orphans in Coma and Here Comes the Hurricane, but more recently he has been rapping with La Carabine. So he studied design and marketing before working in the field professionally, and he's the man behind the branding and artwork of Messorem. So this very distinctive style of artwork that you see is down to him, of course. But back in 2015, these three guys would meet every Friday in a group of friends to do beer tastings and try different rare beers from across the world. But this got them wondering about how they could satisfy their desire for such beers without having to only, bring back very small amounts, a couple of bottles and things. And this got them talking about founding their own microbrewery to replicate these beers that they'd tried abroad. So Marc-André's father, Christian, was really impressed by the group's tenacity at getting the project off the ground. And so he spoke to his friend Francois Garot, who helped find the company's current home by Lachine Canal on Pitt Street. And Christian had worked in pharma while Francois had been a professor of mathematics, and this whole kind of real estate thing was a little bit of a side project of his, but these two men of course joined the company as well to help kind of get it off the ground. But the name Messorem Bractorium is taken from Latin, and it translates into English as the Brewery of the Reaper. But the brewery opened its doors to the public in August of 2019. They've got a tap room on site with a terrace and capacity for 250 people, and apparently they collaborate with Mitch Daly, who run the kitchen, and they serve all sorts of dishes. So they've got a kind of rotating menu from what I understand. But over the years, the brewery have become very well known for their IPAs and also for their sour beers as well. I've not seen any of the sours make their way over here to Hong Kong, so fingers crossed some of them will in the near future. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 550 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything that I can really tell you about Messorem Bractorium for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, now I can breathe a little bit and we can focus on the beer. That is your brewery history, and these guys are pretty interesting, I have to say. So yeah, let's just wipe the sweat off the can a little bit, and you can have a little look at it. So very simple artwork in this case for this one. You can see plain silver top on the can there. This one is 473 milliliters incidentally, which is 1 American pint. You can see the Reaper on the side of the can there. As we say, Messorem Bractorium, the Brewery of the Reaper, if you want to translate it into English. And you'll also see that on the cans there is Messorem at the bottom as well. And this one is Triple Tombe. It comes in at 10% ABV, a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. This one has Nectaron in it, Strata, and also different types of citrus. So Nectaron is a hop we know quite well. It's a new one, about 14% alpha acid from New Zealand. So it gives you a lot of like peach and pineapple and quite a little bit of orangey character. In my experience, 14% alpha acid, if I didn't say that already. Citra we know very, very well, 14% alpha acid American, big, juicy sort of mango-y notes in a New England Hazy IPA. Quite a lot of like passion fruit and papayas and stuff like that too, and also a good little bit of lemon limey character. And then with Strata's an interesting one, about 14% alpha acid again, and it gives you quite a little bit of a melon and strawberry type character as well. So yeah, the way that the hop profile on this one sounds is pretty nice. But there's a few different versions of Citra in this one. You've got Incognito and Lupo Max in this one, and we've also got Strata CGX, which I'm not 100% sure about. But yeah, basically when it comes to Lupo Max and Incognito, these ones are, hop extracts, if you like, that concentrate the flavorful part of the hop essentially. But yeah, 10% New England Triple IPA, this one, Triple Tombe. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. I'm very, very curious about this beer. So yeah, let's do it. I'm really curious. So this looks good, I have to say. But the Messorem beers tend to look good, I will say that straight away. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see that it's poured with about just under a half or a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That is fading away quite quickly though. But you can see, yeah, medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, and it gets a little bit foamier the further up the head that you go, but you can see the beer has this lovely, very bright yellow kind of mango juice colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. And the level of haze in these New England IPAs is dependent on a few things as well. You've got the wheat content, the oak content, and also to a degree what yeast you use. And yeah, you know, in terms of what you'd expect from a triple IPA at 10% ABV, this one is pretty soupy and gloopy, but I have seen ones that are a wee bit soupier and gloopier than that. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this beer, but appearance wise, I think it's pretty much spot on from what you would expect from the style. So yeah, I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this particular beer, but yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we go. And I've just noticed actually, this one says on the back there, Extreme Turbo, so maybe this is a slightly different version of the beer than I thought it was going to be. I'll need to check that before I actually post this one. So this could well be the Triple Tombe Extreme Turbo, but I have seen a couple of the beers from Messorem that say Extreme Turbo as part of the title of the beer. This one doesn't, it just says Triple Tombe. So yeah, do need to check that before we post this one. But anyway, yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this beer and see what it gives us, because it certainly looks very, very nice, this one. So let's do it. Oh yeah, this smells really, really good. First impression of this one, the first thing that comes out is a big, big sort of creamy, smooth New England IPA, but I'm getting this kind of like Skittles type note out of this one, and it's one of the yeasts that they very commonly use in these New England IPAs that does that, and I love it. I do absolutely love it. Yeah, the sort of Skittles note that you get out of this beer is just pretty awesome, I have to say. But yeah, generally speaking, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice. So on the this is a big, big creamy oaty New England IPA in my opinion. So as I've said on the channel many a time before, when it comes to the New England IPAs, you have maybe 6 elements you need to think about. You've got the barley malt bread, you've got the oaty creaminess, the wheaty bitiness, and the sweeter side of things. Quite often you can also have quite a little bit of yeasty character as well, and in the American brewed ones you can sometimes find that sort of rye, bready, grainy type character out of them. But yeah, this one certainly comes across as being very sort of creamy and oaty. You can get a little bit of the barley malt in this, and it's also got a little bit of the kind of yeasty character for me. So yeah, it smells lovely, this one. It gives you everything you want. Big, kind of smooth, fruity juiciness, lovely little bit of malty backbone, and you do have that nice kind of bright green component as well. But let's just break the aroma of the beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. But this is a very soft smelling New England triple. I think this is going to be one of these ones that's very, you know, dangerous almost, actually, in how easy it is to drink. So yeah, the aroma's lovely, it really is. Yeah, the backbone of this beer, you have a lovely sort of fresh, white bready bread crust coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely fresh, white bready bread crust in there. Little bit of wood, slight kind of smattering of cracker in there. There's a teeny little hint of like a slightly sweet brown bread, but beyond that, lovely big fluffy white bready character out of it as well. Yeah, big fluffy airy white bready notes coming out of it, and yeah, above that you start to get the wheaty and the oaty notes. So for me, the wheaty side of this beer is quite the wheaty side of this beer is actually very smooth, in all honesty. So there's a little bit of bitiness at the back of the nose. So yeah, a little bit of bitiness there, but otherwise the wheaty character that comes out of this is very, very smooth, and I do like that with this beer as well. yeah, so yeah, a little bit of smooth wheaty character in there, a little bit of bitiness in there, but the oats are coming out of this one in quite a little bit of abundance. And as I've often said on the channel, when it comes to New England IPAs, the oaty character in these beers is often a very good indicator of how fresh the beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. So yeah, for me, the oaty creaminess that comes out of this beer is quite it is, you know, it's very, very smooth. So this beer must be very, very fresh, just like, you know, maybe about a month old or something like that. Does it say oh, it says 25th of March 2024, so we're actually drinking this one maybe just over 2 months old, but it still smells extremely fresh actually. But then again, some breweries will hold on to their cans for a couple of weeks before they release them, because, you know, especially with New England IPAs, I think you need to leave them for about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, just to let them mellow out that little bit so you don't get too much hop burn. So that's another factor to think about with these New Englands as well. So we're drinking this beer maybe 6 weeks after it's kind of in its prime, which is still pretty good in honesty for an import beer that's come that far. So yeah, we've covered the malty side of this beer as far as I remember. We've got the oaty creaminess. Do we have a little bit of sweetness in this one? Maybe a tiny little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, but not overly much. Yeah, I think we've said everything we need about the malty and the yeasty side of this beer. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it's got a very soft green component, this one, and when you've got, you know, Incognito and Lupo Max in this one, that kind of goes with the territory, to be honest with you, because of these hop extract notes. But yeah, when it comes to IPAs, you have 3 kinds of hopping. Early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you most of your bitterness and a very deep dank aroma. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour aroma, and it gives you quite a bright green component in that regard as well. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component as well. New England IPAs rely on the latter 2, late edition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they're deeper, danker, more bitter. But yeah, in the case of this particular beer, you've got teeny little bit of earthiness, mainly a very smooth, sort of almost grassy and very slightly herbal-like component to it. Again, that's the Incognito that's doing that, and you get a wee bit of zestiness out of the grassy character at the front of the nose as well. But yeah, overall, the green component in this one is quite nice, and, you know, if you take it into the top of the nose, you get a little bit more of that zesty, grassy character as well. But yeah, the way that all of this kind of pieces together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah, fruity side of things, it's kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. You do get quite a little bit of, I think, the sort of skittle note. On reflection, when I've been smelling this beer, I think some of the skittle notes is probably the strata, that strawberry note that it can give you, and also a little bit of the melon. So yeah, that might be what's going on in this one. But yeah, you certainly get a nice little bit of like ripe peach out of this one. There's a bit of peach in there, big juicy mangoes, a lot of soft apricot and kind of pineapple-y characters in there as well. And, you know, the peach is going to come from both Citra and Nectaron. Big juicy ripe mango, soft apricot, like I say, and then yeah, good little bit of pineapple, but yeah, juicy strawberry and a bit of melon at the front of the nose for sure. Maybe just a little touch of an orangey tangerine note as well. So yeah, the aroma coming out of this is pretty interesting, but again, it comes across as very smooth and just creamy, and I think this is what we've had from the Messorem beers before actually, but these are always very good quality in my experience. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them, because this one is pretty damn nice. So yeah, this is the Triple Tombe, a 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, from the wonderful Messorem Bractorium in Montreal, Quebec. This is a brewery that I definitely need to go and visit their tap room and just see what they're doing, because their beers have been damn good to try. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one and see what it's all about. Slange, Skål, cheers, or as they say in Quebec, santé. Let's do it. Yeah. These New England triples from Messorem are pretty bloody special in all honesty. Well, pretty much, you know, their doubles and things like that are as well. You know, a number of the shops here in Hong Kong have had the single IPAs, but I haven't tried them because, you know, the single IPAs are about the same price as the doubles and the triples, and for me, there's a little bit of a kind of bang for your buck sort of thing going on here. I go for the stronger ones because, you know, for a tasting beer and making a review and stuff like this, you want something that's a bit bigger and bolder and punchier and stuff for the price, if you like. So yeah, this is why I'm reviewing mainly the stronger Messorem beers, but these are always so bloody good, and this thing's about 2 months in the can, and it really is very kind of spot on, I have to say. Don't know what that noise was that I made, but yeah. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful beer once again from Messorem Bractorium. Not surprised though, because we've had good beers from these guys already. So yeah, this gives you everything you want. Lovely, big, smooth, creamy New England triple IPA. Soft, fruity, juicy character, lovely big bready and creamy oaty notes in there, and just a little bit of green component to it as well, which is what you want. Yeah, very impressed once again. So let's do as we always do. We'll break the flavour of the beer down and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. So, it really is good. The backbone of the beer, the middle third of your palate then, you get that lovely, smooth, fresh, white bready, bread crusty character coming out of this one. And that just lingers there. If you move a little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little tiny hint of woodiness in there, and there's a wee bit of there's just a smattering of like a Jacob's cream cracker or something like that. But above that, you get this slightly wet and sweet, like wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of this one, which I think is really, really nice. On top of that, you have this lovely kind of slightly dense, but also slightly sweet and smooth, fluffy white bready character, and that's the barley malt, of course. The next layer up, you get this lovely kind of more dense, wheaty white bready character. You can always tell the difference between the wheaty white bread and the barley malt white bread, in my opinion, because you just feel the difference in the density. So yeah, you can feel within that wheaty layer, it's got a little touch of bite to it toward the back of that middle third of your palate, but as you move further forward, it's very smooth and almost kind of slightly creamy in a way, but that's due to the oaty layer that sits above it. But yeah, the brown bread, the white bread, and the kind of wheaty bready characters in the middle of your palate, they are very, very nice in this case. But yeah, let's look at the oaty side of this beer then. Yeah, the oaty side of this beer for me, if you go down the middle line of your palate, you've got a really nice, you can feel that really nice kind of creamy character coming out of the beer. So yeah, that big oaty creaminess there, and as you move out towards the edges of the palate, the oats stay quite creamy, and that tells you the beer is quite fresh, but you do get just that little hint of dryness out of the oaty character as well. Within that oaty note, you start to get that little bit of, you know, skittle type quality coming out, which I think is really interesting. That's usually due to one of the yeasts, and I forget what yeast it is that gives you that. But yeah, the oaty character just has this little bit of an almost skittle type quality to it. But in the very dead centre of your palate, you can feel that little circle there where you've got the kind of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing to the beer, and that is of course the boozy side of things. So yeah, the way that goes together is is quite interesting. Yeah, so Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch in the middle of your palate, wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this one, and yeah, the way that all of that goes together is really, really quite nice. I think we've covered the middle third of the palate in this one as much as we really need to. So remember, with your palate, sweeter flavours are going to come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But let's focus on that back third of the palate now. And as I've said before, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get a nice little bit of bready build up in there, wee bit of brown bread in the base, softer white bread above that, and a wee bit of the kind of wheaty bitey character on top of it. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the nice kind of white bready bread crust in there. Above that, you get a little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker as well, and then you get the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy, just a little bit drier too maybe. Then the barley malt white bready layers in there as well, and then the top layer of the back of the malty side of things in there is the wheat. But the wheat, it has a little bit of bite to it, but I think generally speaking the wheat that's in this beer is very, very smooth, and that kind of contributes to the overall kind of creamy mouthfeel that this beer has. Above everything else on that back third of the palate, you've got some really nice yeasty notes coming out of this one as well. So let's focus just on that yeasty part of the beer. So the yeasty side of the beer for me, in the middle, it's got like this sweet but dense white bready character, and as you move further out from it, it becomes a little bit more of a kind of rusticy white bready note, then just that bread crusty character around the edge for sure. So yeah, the way all of that pieces together, I think, is really very, very nice, and that again gets a big thumbs up from me. The yeasty side of this beer, that it takes a little bit of time, but it lingers there into the aftertaste, and I think all of that goes together really nicely too. But definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, let's go on to the green component of the beer then. In the back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch herbal, which is good. A little bit earthy, a little bit herbal, but then yeah, as you move further forward from that, you can feel, the Lupo Max and the Incognito coming into play, because you get that little bit of floral character there, but it's very smooth and oily, but at the same time it just has that little touch of spiciness to it in there. So yeah, nice kind of floral aromatic spice coming out of this beer, which I really do like. Round the front curve of your tongue though, you've got that lovely, lighter, grassy kind of component coming out of the beer, which is also really, really enjoyable. So yeah, lovely kind of smooth, oily, grassy kind of thing coming out of this one. And there's a wee bit of zestiness in there as well actually, but again the oiliness is due to the presence of the Incognito and probably the Lupo Max as well actually. But yeah, the green component in this one, it's got a little touch of bitterness to it, but it doesn't feel madly bitter in that sense, but it just gives the beer that little bit of bite and zip, which is interesting, especially at this ABV. So yeah, let's focus on the front third of the palate then and the fruity side of things. I think I said everything we need to about the green component. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and just a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness there. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, smooth, fresh, white bready bread crust, little touch of the brown bread, the soft white bread, and then you can feel the really smooth wheat. And then above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's just look at those fruity notes then. Yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a lovely big kind of juicy, you've got a lovely big juicy peachy note coming out of this one. Maybe a little touch of grapefruit as well, like maybe in the very base at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a stronger grapefruity note coming out of this one, which I do really quite like. And then, yeah, lovely big kind of ripe peachy character sitting on top of that. Ripe kind of peachy notes coming out of this one as well. And then when you move further forward from that, you start to get the big kind of juicy mango character from the Citra. The peach, of course, will be coming from both Nectaron and from Citra in this case. But yeah, big ripe juicy mangoes there. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel there's like soft apricot underneath and like a more oily pineapple-y character sitting on top of that. And the pineapple I think is more likely to be Nectaron, whereas the softer apricot is probably going to be the Citra. And as you move further forward from that, you can feel it starts to get a little bit oily, and you have this kind of melony character underneath and the sort of oily strawberry character on top of that. That's the strata. I think the front half of the front third of your palate is more about the strata, but there's a little bit of gooseberry in there as well, which can come from the Citra too, I would say. Especially, that's actually a bit more common in the West Coast IPAs rather than the New England's, come to think of it. But yeah, there is a wee bit of like a gooseberry melony note underneath on that front half of the front third of your palate, then the juicy strawberry sits on top of it. So that's interesting for sure. But yeah, beautiful beer, this one. It gets a bit more oily the more that you drink of it too, and I'm also getting a wee more wheaty bite out of this one the more that I drink of it as well. But that's a beautiful New England triple, and you certainly won't regret paying a little bit extra to try this one as I did. So I think we can leave it at that for the tasting section. Let's round off this review with a little look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, this beer is like bottom end of full body. The carbonation is very smooth. It has a little bit of an oily slickness to it, but at the same time it's very creamy, if that at all makes sense. In terms of IBU, I think this beer probably sits around 50, 60 IBUs at the most, because when you have that big heavy malt base like this beer does and everything else going on, you do want to up the bitterness a little bit just to balance the beer out. So I think we're talking about 40 or 50 IBUs with this one, kind of minimum. It could potentially be up at 60. You do get a wee bit more lingering bitterness out of this beer into the aftertaste, and the wheaty bitiness is in there as well. But yeah, the base of the malty side of things, yeah, you've got that, bit of dryness underneath, lovely smoothness in the middle, the creaminess on top, a very slight sweetness to it, but not overly much. And then yeah, a big juicy fruity character to this one as well, with just a wee bit of a citricy note into the aftertaste as well, or citrusy note I should say. But all in all, beautiful beer this one, and I'm really glad that I finally got to try this. So we can leave it at that. This one was the Triple Tombe, a 10% New England triple IPA with Citra, Nectaron and Strata in it, if I'm not mistaken, from the wonderful Messorem Bractorium in Quebec. Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Brain's a little bit tired at this point, and probably the booze as well when it's 10% ABV. It covers its alcohol really well, this one. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Messorem Bractorium as well. And we will be returning to these guys very soon, I'm sure. But yeah, check out my social media, check out theirs, and there'll be more reviews from these guys in the very near future. Ciao just now.